What's up, my tarot people? Welcome back to the table. And listen, I'm just going to say this before we even get too deep into the cards. This one already feels spicy. Like, this is not a soft little, maybe they miss you reading. This is giving, wait, they actually left? This is giving somebody stood there with their little plan, their little emotional chessboard, their little push-pull strategy, and then you did the one thing they genuinely did not calculate. You left. And I don't mean physically for all of you. For some of you, yes, you literally walked away. You blocked them, stopped answering, stopped checking, stopped explaining. But for others, this was energetic. You stopped leaning forward. You stopped auditioning for basic respect. You stopped trying to prove that you were lovable to someone who was benefiting from you, questioning yourself. So brace yourself, because I feel like this reading is going to be blunt. If it resonates, it should feel like something clicks in your body. Do not force it. This is collective, so take what lands and leave the rest. The first card we have here is the VII of Wands. And I love this for this topic because look at the imagery. Two people holding wands, facing each other almost like a duel. There's a staircase between them, this raised place, this almost sacred middle ground. And then above them, we have crossed wands, a sword, laurels, victory energy. So right away, I'm feeling that this connection became a test of position. Who has the upper hand? Who speaks first? Who cares less? Who can make the other person uncomfortable enough to chase? And this is where it gets interesting, because I feel like this person thought you were still playing. They thought you were still standing there with your wand raised, ready to defend, debate, explain, prove, convince, but something in you changed. Something in you said, actually, I don't need to win a game I never agreed to play. And that right there ruined them. Because the game only worked when you were reactive. The game only worked when your nervous system was invested in getting clarity from someone who was intentionally keeping things unclear. Something about your silence is louder than anything you could have said. And I'm hearing this very clearly. Your exit was not weakness. It was the first honest move on the board. And with this Three of Swords coming out right after that, I mean, come on, you cannot make this up. Because look at this card. We have the heart pierced. We have the tears. We have the face turned away. Almost like somebody is trying not to look directly at what they caused. And that is the part that feels loud to me. This is not just heartbreak. This is the moment after the game stops working, and somebody has to sit with the damage. Because before, as long as you were reacting, they could tell themselves, well, they're dramatic. They're emotional. They're overthinking. They care too much, right? They could make your response the problem. They could point at your pain and act like that was the reason things were messy, instead of looking at what kept creating the pain in the first place. But when you left quietly, when you stopped giving them the emotional evidence they were used to using against you, that changed the whole board. Now there is no argument to hide behind. No paragraph to dissect, no tone to criticize. No, you're being too sensitive to throw back at you. Just the silence, just the absence, just the empty space where your effort used to be. And I feel like that is why this Three of Swords is hitting so hard here, because this person expected conflict. They expected resistance. They expected you to stand there with your wand raised, still trying to prove your side. Still trying to make them understand. Still trying to get some kind of emotional fairness out of somebody who was benefiting from keeping the terms unfair. They wanted your reaction. Not necessarily because they wanted resolution. For some of you, they wanted confirmation that they still had access. They wanted to know they could still pull a string and feel you move. They wanted to know that even if they disappointed you, confused you, ignored you, delayed you, or gave you the bare minimum, you would still show up trying to make sense of it. But this time, you didn't. And I don't think they knew what to do with that. Because this card feels like the part they did not calculate. Your silence did not mean you had no feelings. Your silence meant your feelings were no longer available for them to manage, manipulate, or measure. That is a very different kind of power. And I want you to hear me clearly, because some of you still might be sitting there wondering, did I do too much? Was I too cold? Did I abandon the connection? No. What I'm seeing is that you stopped abandoning yourself inside the connection. That is why the heart is pierced here. Not because your exit was cruel, but because your exit made the truth unavoidable. And next, I want to look at why this person may have actually panicked once they realized you were not bluffing. And look at this. The moon coming out reversed. That tells me they did not believe you were really going to detach. They thought this was a mood. They thought this was a phase. They thought, okay, let them cool off. Let them sit with it. They'll be back. And I'm saying that carefully because this doesn't feel like somebody who genuinely understood the depth of what they were risking. They underestimated you because they had gotten used to a version of you that kept trying. And listen, that version of you was not weak. That version of you was loving. That version of you was patient. That version of you was giving somebody room to grow, room to explain, room to show up better, room to not be reduced to their worst moments. But this person confused your patience with weakness. They confused your empathy with availability. They confused your forgiveness with permission. And that is where the moon reversed gets very loud. Because upright, the moon can be confusion, fog, mixed signals, not seeing the whole path clearly. But reversed, something starts coming out of the dark. The illusion starts slipping. The little emotional maze does not hit the same anymore. And I feel like for a while, they could keep you in that fog. Not because you were foolish, but because you cared. There's a difference. When you care about someone, you try to understand them. You look for the deeper reason. You say, maybe they're scared. Maybe they don't know how to communicate. Maybe they've been hurt before. Maybe if I just explain it one more time. And they watched that. They watched you come back after being disappointed. They watched you soften after being hurt. They watched you make room for behavior that did not make room for you. And somewhere along the line, they started thinking that was just how this worked. Who reaches out first? Who folds first? Who breaks the silence? Who admits they still care? They thought they knew the answer. But this time, you did not give them the scene. You did not give them the dramatic argument. You did not perform your pain in a way that made them feel central. You did not beg to be understood by someone who had already shown you. They understood enough to know where it hurt. And that is the real shock here. Not just that you left. It's that you left without asking them to approve your exit. That is what ruined the little strategy. Because now the fog is clearing, and in the next card, I want to look at what they were really trying to control in the first place. And there it is. Ace of Swords reversed. So what were they trying to control? Clarity. That is the first thing I'm feeling. Because upright, the Ace of Swords is truth. It is direct communication. It is the clean cut. It is somebody saying what they mean and meaning what they say. But reversed? That sword gets turned inward, sideways, upside down. The truth gets delayed. The conversation gets blurred. The words come out incomplete. Or they come out just enough to keep you thinking there might be more coming. And I want to be careful here. Because I'm not saying this person sat in a dark room with a villain cape and a 5-step emotional manipulation plan. For some of you, no. This person may not even have that level of self-awareness. But did they know enough to create uncertainty? Yes. Did they know when to pull back? Yes. Did they know when to send one little crumb right when you were finally getting quiet? Yes. Did they know how to act wounded when you asked for accountability? So suddenly, you became the one comforting them? For a lot of you, yes. And that is the control dynamic underneath the whole thing. It was not just about controlling the relationship. It was about controlling your access to truth. Controlling the timing of answers. Controlling when you felt secure and when you felt like you were losing your place. Controlling whether you trusted your own perception. Because when someone keeps the sword reversed like this, you start second-guessing yourself. Did I misunderstand? Did I ask too much? Was I too intense? Maybe I should have said it differently. Maybe they would open up if I were calmer, softer, less direct, more patient. And I'm hearing, no, for some of you, you were already patient past the point of fairness. Take it if it resonates. This feels like somebody benefited from the fact that you kept trying to translate confusion into meaning. You kept taking mixed signals and turning them into homework. You kept absorbing the fog and then working overtime to make it make sense. But when you exited, that loop broke. There was no one on the other end converting their lack of clarity into effort anymore. No one decoding the silence. No one polishing the excuses. No one holding the sword by the blade just so they would not have to pick it up correctly. And that is why their ego is getting loud now. Because the next layer is going to show us something very important. Their heart may feel something, but their pride is trying to speak first. And now we have the Five of Cups reversed. So yeah, this is exactly what I mean when I say their heart may feel something, but their pride is trying to speak first. Because upright Five of Cups is grief, regret, staring at what's spilled, staring at what went wrong, standing there in the emotional aftermath. But reversed, it gets complicated. It's like somebody wants to move past the feeling without fully sitting in it. They want relief without accountability. And that is where the ego comes in. Because when control stopped working, ego stepped in to protect them from regret. That's what this feels like. Their pride is pacing. Their ego is checking the door. Their mind is trying to build a version of the story where they did not push you too far, where you're just mad, where you're being stubborn, where you're waiting for them to chase you so you can feel powerful. But deep down, they know this is different. They may be telling themselves, they'll be back. They may be telling themselves, they always come around. They may even be telling themselves, they're just trying to get a reaction out of me. And that last one is interesting, because it shows how much they are still interpreting your silence through the rules of their own game. They think silence is strategy, because that is how they used it. But your silence is not the same thing. For them, silence may have been punishment, testing, control. Let me see if they panic. Let me see if they reach. Let me see if they start questioning themselves. For you, silence became protection. That is a very different energy. And with this Five of Cups reversed, I feel like they are uncomfortable because they cannot tell whether they lost access permanently or temporarily. They don't know if this is a closed door or a door they can knock on later with the right tone, the right memory, the right little message that sounds soft enough to slip past your boundaries. And for some of you, yes, they may be tempted to reach out. But I want to be very clear. A person reaching out because their ego is uncomfortable is not the same as a person reaching out because their character has caught up with their feelings. That's the part. Because regret can make noise. Loneliness can make noise. Pride can make noise. But accountability has a very different sound. And what they did not expect, what they really did not calculate, is that you did not just leave them. You return to yourself. And look at this card now. Judgment reversed. That is so interesting, because this is where the reading turns back toward you. Not them. Not their ego. Not their little internal panic. You. Because judgment upright can be awakening. Realization. The call. The moment where something rises up and says, okay, we cannot keep pretending we don't know what we know. But reversed? This feels like the part of you that stayed under somebody else's verdict for too long. Like you were waiting for them to decide. Am I enough? Was I worth choosing? Was I too much? Did I handle this right? Are they going to finally see me clearly? and I'm hearing no more. That is the return to yourself, because your exit was not impulsive. This was not you waking up one day and saying, "You know what? Let me be dramatic." No. This feels like something that happened after repeated disappointments, repeated confusion, repeated over-explaining. Repeated moments where you tried to make the connection safe enough for your heart to relax, and it just never stayed safe for long. You kept trying to build a home in a place that kept moving the walls, and that does something to a person. So if your nervous system is still adjusting, give yourself grace, because sometimes peace feels strange after chaos. Sometimes not checking feels like withdrawal. Sometimes not reaching feels like you're doing something wrong, when really, you're just not feeding the pattern anymore. Please do not mistake withdrawal symptoms for love. That is important. Missing the cycle is not the same as missing the person in their truth. Missing the intensity is not the same as missing intimacy. Missing the chase is not the same as being called back by your soul. Sometimes your body is just used to being on alert, used to waiting for the next message, the next shift, the next cold tone, the next little opening where you could finally breathe again, but you stopped auditioning. You stopped translating disrespect into potential. You stopped making their confusion your homework. You stopped standing in the courtroom of their opinion, waiting for a judgment that was never qualified to define you in the first place. And that is why this is powerful. Because while they are trying to figure out whether they lost access, you are learning what access to you actually costs now. And the next thing I want to look at is the bait. Because when somebody feels you truly pulling your energy back, they may come in with something that looks like change. But we need to talk about whether it is change or just another test. And now we have the Hermit reversed. So yeah, this is the card I would expect to see when somebody has been sitting in their little cave, telling themselves they're fine, telling themselves they don't need to say anything, telling themselves they're above reaching out. And then the silence starts getting too loud. Because upright, the Hermit is real reflection. It is somebody going inward, looking at themselves, sitting with the truth, asking, what part did I play in this? But reversed. This can be somebody coming out of isolation before they have actually learned anything. That is why I said we need to talk about the bait. Because for some of you, this person may reappear. Not all of you, so do not sit by the phone and turn this into a waiting game. That is not what we're doing here. But for some of you, yes, there may be a casual message, a random hope you're good, a little like on something, a story view, a nostalgic post that feels a little too specific, a mutual friend suddenly bringing them up, or my favorite one, when they come back acting like nothing happened. Like, excuse me. You don't get to walk back onto the board like the pieces are still where you left them. And that is the thing with the Hermit reversed. This feels less like, I have done the deep work, and I want to repair this with honesty, and more like, I don't like how it feels to not have access. Do you see the difference? Because a real repair attempt has weight to it. It has accountability. It has clarity. It does not make you do all the emotional labor just to figure out why they are back. It does not come dressed as a vague little breadcrumb and then expect you to build a whole meal out of it. A control reset feels different. A control reset says, let me check if the door still opens. Let me see if they still soften. Let me see if I can get back in without naming what I did. Let me see if their boundary was real. And your healing is going to be tested through discernment, not punishment. You do not have to be cold. You do not have to be cruel. But you also do not have to confuse someone's loneliness with transformation, because the Hermit reversed is asking one question very clearly. Did they come back wiser? Or did they just come back uncomfortable? And next, there is another layer here, because I don't think your exit only changed how this person sees you. I think it changed how the whole room sees you. And look at what comes out. 8 of Swords. Now this is interesting, because this card is not just about feeling stuck. I know that's the traditional hit, right? Feeling trapped, feeling limited, feeling like there are swords all around you and no clear way out. But in this reading, with everything we've already seen, this feels like the old room you used to stand in. The mental room. The emotional room. The room where everybody kind of knew the roles. You were the one who understood. You were the one who adjusted. You were the one who explained. You were the one who tried to keep the peace, while somebody else kept moving the problem. And I feel like your exit changed the room, because you stopped standing in that role. That is why people may feel this, even if nobody is saying it out loud. Mutual friends may notice you are not as easy to pull into the story. A social circle may notice you are not asking questions anymore. Family dynamics, workplace dynamics, even future romantic options. There is something about your energy that feels less available for chaos now. Not louder, not meaner, just less available, and that makes people adjust. Because when you stop chasing, the whole power map changes. The person who was used to being the center suddenly has to wonder why the room does not orbit them the same way. The people who assumed you would always be the flexible one suddenly realize, oh, they're not bending this time. And I want you to look at the blindfold here, because for a while, I feel like somebody wanted you uncertain. They wanted you unsure of your own position. They wanted you looking for permission to move. But the thing about the 8 of Swords is, the restriction is not as permanent as it feels. There is a way out. There was always a way out. And you found it by not playing the part anymore. That is the reputation your silence created. Not through a speech. Not through a dramatic announcement. Not through posting quotes and proving you're healed. Through absence. Your absence said, I'm no longer available to be confused on purpose. So if this person tries to come back, understand something. They are not coming back to the same version of you. They are coming back into a different energetic room. The chair they left you in is empty. You are not standing where they put you. And next, this gets even deeper, because your exit is forcing them to face something they were avoiding in themselves. And look at this, Page of Swords reversed. This is the card of somebody watching, but not necessarily speaking correctly. Somebody wanting information, but not necessarily having the maturity to approach the truth directly. And that makes so much sense with what we just said, because if your exit changed the room, now they are trying to read the room without being able to control it. That's uncomfortable for them. Because Page of Swords upright can be curiosity, communication, wanting to understand. But reversed? It can get messy. It can be checking without admitting they're checking. Asking around without asking you. Reading into your silence. Watching your movement. Trying to figure out if you're really done. If you're dating. If you're peaceful. If you're pretending. If you miss them. If you're suffering. If you're waiting. And I'm hearing, for some of you, they are looking for evidence that their version of the story is still true. Because if they can tell themselves, oh, they're just trying to make me jealous, or they're just being cold, or they're still bothered, then they do not have to face the mirror. But the mirror is right here. Your departure became a mirror because now they have to sit in the very thing they used to create for you. Uncertainty. No clear answer. No emotional control. No guarantee that the other person is still available. And I'm not saying that from a revenge place. We're not doing the I hope they suffer thing over here. That's not the energy. The point is not that you cursed them. The point is not that you exposed them. The point is not that you chased them down and demanded they feel guilty. You just removed yourself. That's it. You removed the emotional supply that made the game possible. You stopped being the person who filled in every silence, softened every sharp edge, explained every misunderstanding, and protected them from the full consequence of their own inconsistency. And now they have to ask themselves something they probably did not want to ask. Was I actually in control? Or was I just being protected by their love? Because that's different. Did I have power? Or did they have patience? Was I untouchable? Or were they just choosing grace? Did I mistake their softness for something disposable? That Page of Swords reverse tells me their mind is busy, busy, busy. But busy is not the same as honest. Watching is not the same as accountability. Curiosity is not the same as courage. And that is why the final message matters. Because some of you still have a little part of you wondering, did I leave too soon? Did I make the right move? So let's close this properly and look at the final card. 4 of Cups. This is the close. This is exactly the energy we needed here. Because the 4 of Cups is that moment where something is being offered, but the person in the card is not automatically reaching for it. They're thinking. They're feeling into it. They're not jumping just because a cup appears. And for this reading, that feels like your final message. Not every offer deserves your open hands. Not every message is repair. Not every apology is change. Not every "I miss you" means they are ready to meet you differently. And I know that might sting for some of you, because part of you may still want the version of this connection that you kept trying to build. Not the chaos, not the confusion, not the emotional chess. The real version, the safe version. The version where love did not feel like a strategy session. But that is exactly why this exit mattered. Because your badass exit ruined the game by proving you are no longer willing to be moved around by somebody else's uncertainty. You are no longer sitting at the table, waiting for them to decide what your piece is worth. You are no longer treating mixed signals like sacred instructions. You chose alignment over access, peace over performance, self-respect over emotional chess. And if they come back, watch behavior, not intensity. Please hear that. Watch consistency, not panic. Watch accountability, not nostalgia. Watch whether they can name what happened without making you drag the truth out of them with both hands. Because someone can miss you and still not be ready to love you correctly. Someone can regret losing access and still not understand what access requires. Someone can feel the absence of your energy and still try to come back through the same door they disrespected before. So did you leave too soon? If staying required you to abandon yourself, no. If staying meant shrinking your needs so they could feel comfortable, no. If staying meant becoming more anxious, more confused, more silent, more afraid to ask for basic clarity, then no, my love, you did not leave too soon. You left when your spirit finally stopped negotiating with what your body already knew. And that is the victory here. Not that they're hurting, not that they're watching, not that they may come back. The victory is that you finally stopped choosing the game over yourself. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't. But for whoever this was for, your silence was not the end of your power. It was the moment your power came back home.